Florida State gets through the bye week and looks to take on Virginia Tech this Saturday. Kickoff is at 3:30, and it's good to finally get back in Doak. And it's about time, considering Florida State has only played one home game all year, and it was against Southern Miss. So definitely good to be back in Doak. Hopefully feeling refreshed coming off this bye week that you kind of feel was much needed, right? Akeem Dent has been out. Robert Scott, Murray Smith, Jordan Travis have all been a little banged up. This team definitely needed this bye week to not only rest and heal, but to kind of take a look at some stuff. I don't think anybody is denying that Florida State has played a bit sloppy in some areas. So I think having this bye week now is going to give them a chance to work on some things. Hopefully work on their running game, passing defense. On the bright side, you had your struggles, you had your injuries, but you still got through the toughest month on your schedule undefeated, and now take your bye week. And then you go into a 3-week stretch of home games against teams like Virginia Tech that you should be able to take care of pretty easily. But for starters, let's talk about some injuries. Like we mentioned, your starting safety, Akeem Dent, has been out since week 2. I think that you felt that loss, and he's been a little bit missed in that secondary ever since. He was maybe thought to be back in the last game against Clemson, but it sounds like there was a bit of a setback where the staff felt like maybe he wasn't quite all the way there. Didn't want to risk re-injury and burning him for potentially the whole season. And now it sounds like cautiously he's expected to finally be back this weekend. I believe Robert Scott is also expected back. But two guys that we haven't had all season, and honestly two guys you may have even forgot about in this offense, wide receivers Kentron Portier and Ja'Kai Douglas. They're both looking to make a return this week, and I think that's huge. Obviously, you have two of the top receivers in college football right now, Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson. But Portier and Douglas have both shined at times in this offense as well, and I think Jordan seems to have some good chemistry, especially with Kentron specifically. And of course, Ja'Kai Douglas is always a threat in the slot with that kind of speed and his big playmaking ability. So I think both of those guys coming back adds yet another layer to this offense that's already very, very good. Hopefully we see some flashes from them guys this weekend. I'd imagine since it's Virginia Tech, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, but Virginia Tech isn't very good. So for one, Florida State should be able to take care of this team pretty easily. And if it works out, I think you see guys like Akeem Dent kind of on a snap count. I don't think they play a full game of starting reps, but you do want to try to play them some if they're ready, just to kind of knock off the rust from these last few weeks of being out. Some troubling news, it sounds like Bless Harris was injured in practice this week. We don't know to what extent or what kind of injury it was, but I'd say he probably won't be playing this weekend, and that is a bit of a hit to an offensive line that's already shown some weaknesses this season. And especially when you're struggling in the run game like we are, trying to get it back on track, you just hate to see a starter go out like that. But hopefully it's not too bad, and he'll be back soon. Now I know people are a little more weary of this game after seeing the way Florida State struggled against Boston College. Now, we've already talked at length about some of what went wrong there, why we think that was more of an anomaly than the normal for this team. I know people thought that we should have looked better against Clemson, but what I'll say to that is Clemson was always thought to be a tough game. I think people looked into that Duke loss a little bit too much. But if you hadn't looked that rough at Boston College, no one would have really cared about the way you went into overtime against Clemson. And just by the way, Florida State has one of the best resumes, if not the best, in college football right now. Now, the way to cure all woes, all this doubt, is to come out against a team that's definitely inferior to you and dominate for 60 minutes like you should. I think people are still a little torn on what this FSU team, and honestly, I think it's fair to a point. I think this game against Virginia Tech and really the next few games coming up will tell us a lot. I think Jordan Travis being hurt has limited us in the passing game. He's such a huge part of what this offense does, especially in a running game. So when teams know he's hurt and not going to run, they don't have to defend him or anybody the same way. I think that's a big reason why you see the running game struggle the way it has over these last few weeks. Also, in the first 4 games of the year, you faced 2 of the best defensive lines you'll probably see all season. So that's part of it as well. I think you should be able to run the ball easily against Virginia Tech. And if not, it's time to consider making some personnel changes. Now, I don't think that happens, but you need to see this running game kind of come alive a little bit. I think this team being able to get fully healthy, have a bye week to work on some stuff, and then finally be back at home, I think you finally do see Florida State dominate this one. And it's time, right? I don't even think that should be a big thing at this point. This Virginia Tech team lost to Marshall. So if you're a top 5 team trying to prove that you're a playoff contender, you got to start blowing these kinds of teams out. Again, like I said, I think the players and coaches have had the same frustrations we all do. And if you listen to Mike Norvell's conferences from this week, I think you could tell that he's well aware of all this stuff and made it a focal point in practice this week. It's not like they've been bad, and obviously they've been at least good enough to win all of these games so far. I just think, especially after the second half against LSU, you got so much excitement and expectations for what this team could be. And I still think they can be that. But ever since then, it's just kind of felt like they were just a few missteps away from being that team again. You've seen it in that stretch against Boston College where they just went up 21 points in a matter of minutes. You've seen the second half at Clemson where the defense only gave up 7 points and even scored 7 of their own. So I think we all can see that the potential is there. They just need to find a way to put it all together and stay consistent with it. Of course, that's a bit harder when you have the kind of injuries they've had, but I do think that we see that get back on track this Saturday. I feel like you see a convincing win to make you feel better about everything. And look, if you go out and take care of business the way you're supposed to over these next few weeks, everyone forgets about those rough couple games you had. So just like last year, I think this team has their best football ahead of them after this bye week. Now, I know some people are worried about Virginia Tech's quarterback, Kyron Drones. Yes, he is a dual-threat mobile kind of guy, and he's a big kid. This guy is mobile, but he's nowhere near to the extent that the Castellanos kid for BC was. That being said, I think he may be a better passer, but that's all the more reason we need to see this defense come out playing much better in the first half. Do not give this kid confidence. Don't let them get into a rhythm early on offense. Don't let them keep your defense on the field. Luckily, they've had an extra week to watch film and practice, so they should be fully prepared. Now, no, I'm not worried about Florida State losing this game. I think it'll take some pretty major meltdowns for that to happen. But I'm just a little nervous in how they'll look. We can't start out flat. You can't fall behind early. This absolutely cannot be a game that Florida State's going into halftime down 17-14. On offense, you have to protect the QB, find a way to open up some lanes in the running game, maybe utilize the short passing game a little more and try to find a real rhythm on offense. On defense, you can't be giving up wide open, easy throws. You can't leave the middle of the field open because then you're just in for a long day again. This team has national championship aspirations at this point. And if they want any shot of that, then they need to start dominating in games like this. A C-plus game from FSU should be able to win this game by 2 or 3 scores, easy. So do it and stop leaving doubt out there. Again, I think this bye week was huge and came at really a perfect time to address some of these issues on both sides of the ball. It sounds like the practices have been good, so hopefully we see it all kind of start to click better and translate onto the field. Now, all the more reason Florida State needs to dominate in this game is, like we mentioned, being back in Doak, finally, this has actually turned into a pretty big recruiting weekend for Florida State, headlined by major 5-star defensive lineman recruit in LJ McCray. He's taking his last official visit to Florida State, and there's definitely some work to do here, so you really need to try to impress him with on-field product and give him every reason to choose FSU. It helps that a lot of Florida State's current commits like KJ Bolden, Charles Lester, Luke Kromenhoek will also be in attendance, and I'm sure they'll have their recruiting hats on here. There will also be a lot of 2025 kids in attendance as well, and that class is also shaping up to be a really good one. So boosting your resume, getting healthy, getting better as a team in all phases of the game, and prepare to continue dominating down the stretch. If they play up to their potential, there's not a team out there that they can't beat. And it all starts this weekend against Virginia Tech. So give me your score predictions and tell me what you're looking to see in this game. Let me know in the comments, and let's talk Noles.